Claude Code just shipped a new command called powerup. You type in powerup into the terminal, press enter, and you'll see 10 lessons that come up, which will be interactive animated demos inside Claude Code. Now, as you can see, I haven't actually done any of these yet, but I'm going to go through them live right now and just see how this feature works, what I learn, because even though I teach hundreds of people about Claude Code, I don't know everything about it. So I'm very curious to see what's going to be in powerup. All right, so let's start with talk to your code base. Type @ anywhere in your prompt to fuzzy find and attach a file. Claude reads it before answering, no more pasting code. That's pretty cool. I actually didn't know that. Usually I just ask Claude Code, can you find the file that does whatever? But this would be nice. So let me actually try this out. So I've got a project open here on the right side. And if I put an @ now I see this docs folder, but can I see, I can see within the docs folder too. And then I can choose a particular file. What does this do? And now Claude Code is reading that file directly. That's pretty handy. I actually didn't know that, and I'm definitely going to be using that. Steer with modes. Shift tab to cycle permission modes. Each plan changes how much Claude asks before acting. So this I already did know. I released a Claude Code course just yesterday, and in the course, I talk about this permission system in section 7. So if you're interested to learn more besides the brief lesson here, definitely check out that section of the course. If you go into my school server, the AI MBA, I've got the video of this 3-hour course and then slides which have additional information, which are probably going to be pretty useful to you guys. Undo anything. So let's see what that is. Claude checkpoints your files before every edit. Press escape to open rewind and roll back to any prior state. So let's try that here. I don't use this. Escape. Nothing to rewind yet because this is a fresh session, but I guess you can use this if you've gone down an incorrect direction with Claude Code. To be honest, this almost never happens to me because the workflow I follow is a little bit different. I'll usually have Claude Code make a plan, Codex implement the plan, and then I have Claude Code review the code using compound engineering. And so I, instead of needing to rewind, am usually just making revisions to a branch. And that's the way I tend to do things. But this is interesting, especially for my YouTube scripting, which might be more interactive. That might be helpful. And if you're a beginner, it might be helpful. So let's actually just try it, see what happens. Can you create a new file with some lorem ipsum text? So I'm going to just have Claude Code make a random file right now and then try to use this rewind feature to get rid of it. So if you look here right now, we've got this lorem.txt, which was created. And now if I do escape, it says restore the code and or conversation to the point before. So if I do this, I can choose to restore the code and conversation, or just the code. So let's do code and conversation. Okay. And now if I look in here, that file is gone. That's pretty cool. I think I actually will make use of that. So very nice. Next, run in the background. Long builds and test suites do not have to block you. Add and to any bash command and it runs in the background. You keep chatting, Claude notifies you when it runs. Run tasks to see everything in flight. Claude can read task output mid-run and react to failures automatically. That is pretty cool. So to be honest, I don't see myself using this feature because I use this plugin, Compound Engineering, pretty often. And Compound Engineering has under the hood a few skills that I like to use a lot, like Ideate, which help you at the idea stage of a project, and Brainstorm, which help you sort of think through requirements. And then they have their own plan and their own work. And I think that either work or work beta under the hood are using tasks. Yeah, and so they have this, and I think it's sort of using tasks under the hood because I usually don't give like tiny commands that often anymore. Sometimes, but that's cool. You can just say run the test suite and at the end. Let's actually just try this out. Can you research my YouTube videos with YTDLP and? All right, I tried to get it to work. I don't think it really did it. I'll have to investigate this in a little bit more detail later, but looks cool. Next one, teach Claude your rules. All right, so first they've got this suggestion to use Claude.md files. So already knew about that. Run init to generate a starter Claude.md file, run /memory to edit it in line. So this is actually a little bit of a controversial or uncertain topic. I talked about it in my Claude Code course. There's been studies done recently which evaluated the use of Claude.md or agents.md files, which is the equivalent for cursor or codex. And what they find is that there's not really that big a difference in performance in models. And sometimes it even hurts you if you have a Claude.md or agents.md. And the fundamental problem is that often what's being put in the Claude.md is information that Claude Code doesn't actually need to do its work, or the information that's in the Claude.md gets outdated as the project progresses. And so going back here, the types of things that they're suggesting to put in the Claude.md are pretty good, like test commands, style rules, and do not touch directories. But the kind of thing that you shouldn't put in the Claude.md is like, here is the structure of my repository, because that's going to change over time and it'll just confuse Claude Code if you put that kind of useless thing in the Claude.md. Extend with tools, MCP. MCP servers give Claude new tools, read your Slack, query your database. Once connected, tools appear automatically. I also talk about this at length in my course. Basically, MCPs and skills are both things which are using command line interfaces under the hood. And mostly I like using skills, which are instructions we give Claude Code to help it learn to do specific things the way we want every time. But MCPs are also useful because they can be used with zero setup for things like Notion, Jira, or Gmail. In fact, I think I'm connected to the Notion MCP right now, so let me show you how it works. So I come in here, /MCP. I can see what MCPs I'm currently connected to. Okay, so Notion isn't set up right now, but Slack is. So let's try that. Can you see my latest Slack messages in all pay slice, which is one of our Slack channels? Okay, so I found the latest message that I sent in this Slack channel. Here's what it was. And if I wanted to, I could even send another message by Slack, respond to DMs, all from Claude Code. So we do that all the time at PaySlice to automate stuff, make it a little bit easier, tell somebody what you just did in a PR, that kind of thing. And I find it pretty useful. Would definitely recommend setting up a Slack or Notion MCP. And again, in my course, I do that live in case you want to see exactly how to set up MCPs live. Automate your workflow, skills, and hooks. Save a prompt to here. It becomes /deploy. Claude runs it, runs skills to see what you have. Hooks run on your own scripts on events, run hooks to see what fires. So these are pretty important features. The explanation here is pretty short. So if you're a beginner, I don't expect this to help you in much detail on understanding how to use either skills or hooks. In my course, I've got a section here specifically on hooks, and I also have a pretty extensive deep dive into skills. So I would recommend to check that out, and skills in particular are an extremely important concept. So that part of the course will definitely be helpful to you. Multiply yourself, subagents/agents. Claude can spawn copies of itself to work in parallel. Ask it to use subagents to search these 5 directories and watch the fan out. So subagents, as Claude is saying, are copies of Claude Code, but the two really nice things is that each subagent runs in its own context window, and then also subagents work independently and return results to the parent session. So with Claude Code, you've always got, a context window that you're fighting to stay within. And when that context window gets too full, you have to compact, you reach a summary, but then some information might be lost in this compaction event. And so if you're just doing a search, for example, across many directories, the way you want to do that is with subagents, because all the details of what happens in each directory search are not eventually going to likely to be important for what you're finally doing in a single Claude Code session. So in the course, what I do is an exercise where I connect to Notion by MCP, and then I do analyses of the YouTube content of 16 different AI creators with separate subagents dedicated to each creator. And then I have each creator's subagent right out to Notion. And so you can see here one of the profiles that's created of these different AI content creators. And you could think of all sorts of other things like document proposals, automating research across many papers, across many websites, for which subagents are well suited. Code from anywhere, remote control/teleport. Run remote control and this terminal becomes visible on your phone and at Claude.ai/code. Started a session on the web and want to move it here, run teleport to pull it into this terminal with full history. I've heard about this feature, but I actually haven't tried it yet. I would not recommend this to you as a beginner. I don't think that it's the first thing you need to do. So if I was prioritizing between different things for you to focus on, definitely learn skills and MCPs early on. And there's just so many unexploited gains to be made by using skills and MCPs. Also, for me, I like working in a situation where I can let Claude Code work really autonomously. And so here it says approve tool calls. I wonder if I can work in YOLO mode or dangerous mode safely with remote control. Maybe I can, maybe I can't, I don't know. But something to look into. Dial the model/model/effort. Run model to switch models, Opus for hard problems, Sonnet for most work, Haiku for quick questions. And then effort controls how long Claude thinks before answering, high for tricky bugs, low when you just need a quick edit. Oh, nice. So you get a little celebration when you finish. So coming back here, if I type in effort, you can see that there's set right now to be current effort level medium, and I can set it to either low, medium, high, max, or auto, which I guess will choose the effort depending on the task as Claude Code decides. I actually just leave it on medium all the time, and I've heard that it's not necessarily the case that moving it to high or max will get you better results, but it's worth experimenting with. Now, the other thing you can experiment with is model. What I've heard is that Sonnet and Haiku are basically trash. So I don't agree with this advice from Claude Code. There's a lot of people who, since Claude Code recently has been adjusting usage limits, has been trying to use Sonnet or Haiku instead of Opus. But a lot of my friends, a lot of people I talk to have been saying they're just not getting good results with either of those. So I would recommend just using Opus as much as you can. If you have problems with Opus, and you're still hitting your usage limits, either pay for a higher subscription, maybe move from 20 to 100 or 100 to 200, or think about using Codex, which to be honest, I like more these days anyway. That was it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you want to learn more about Claude Code, I've got tons of tutorials on my website, the AI MBA. I've also got a school server with over 1,600 people who are pushing to get to the frontier of agentic coding. Recently, I put out a full 3-hour Claude Code course for complete beginners, taking you from just zero to being able to deploy a full web app by yourself. And so for those of you who are new to Claude Code and want everything in one location, I would really recommend checking that out. And finally, if you want to get personal mentorship from me, get on weekly group calls, have commitment to be able to get to the frontier of agentic coding for your business, to make money AI consulting as an academic researcher to whatever end, you can join the AI MBA Pro, my paid school group, and you'll be able to ask me your questions in person directly. I've also got some additional resources there I've also got some additional resources that I just share there. And so would love to see you guys in there. All right, that's it for today. Thanks a lot and see you next time.